Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned in to No Pork and All Pearls, a podcast for manifestation, a podcast for self actualization, and a podcast that equips you with the tools to live your life by design and not by default. I want to take time to give thanks to the originators, the ancestors, because if it was not for them, there would be no me. I want to take time to give thanks to the light workers who give the ultimate sacrifice, and that's the sacrifice of themselves for the upliftment of humanity. And I want to take time to give thanks to each and every one of you, the listeners, and not just the ones who are listening right now, but those of you who will come in the future seeking the information to heal our nation. Well, it's about that time again, and it's been a minute. It's been quite some time since I did an episode, but felt inspired to come and share some more information. Um, as we know, we're in a time of transition and a lot of change. A lot of things are occurring. A lot of things are rapidly changing. And one of the things that have really touched my soul is that I really have came to the conclusion that many of us who say that we want truth and we want the truth and we're looking for truth. Um, I don't really know if we can truly handle the truth. And I say that with love, and I say that from a purest space that I can possibly say it from. And when we're talking about truth, of course, we know truth can be both subjective and objective. And it's all about how you determine to qualify what's true. But the fact still remains that many of us who say that we want truth, we're really not in a position to really handle the truth when we receive it. And when we hear it, we want to reject the truth without even taking time to uh, test it or qualify it for ourselves to see if it is indeed a truth or if it's fallacy. But I digress. I'm not here to talk about that. Tonight, what I want to do is I want to talk about principles over personalities. Principles over personalities. Tonight, I want to talk about principles over personalities. And I feel that this is something that needs to be addressed because as I look throughout the records of the past and just as I do a well-informed study of events and the way that they've transpired over periods of time and even over this day and time, I see continually the same cycle and the same tendencies of the people to continue to fall into the state of followship versus taking active measures to attain scholarship. And it's disheartening and it's disappointing, but the facts still remain of what it is. The people would rather follow than take time to learn for themselves. I'm an advocate for self determination. I'm an advocate for knowledge of self. I'm an advocate for searching within, going within, and being who you were created to be and being yourself. That's why I always focus on mind science. I always focus on your ability to manifest the things that you want. I always focus on working on self. And it's not popular. It's not popular to do the work. It's popular to use the buzzwords or use the terminology or working on self or self love or um, taking taking a me day or I'm taking time for self today or all the buzzwords that people like to use and they like to say because it sounds good. But when you take time to actually put in work and you actually truly work on self and you actually go back and you pull back the layers and you truly get an understanding of who you are and your true essence, and you start to realize the power that lies within you that's been dormant for so much time. And when you can really tap into that and you can start really creating the life that you want and you can start being exactly who it is that you were created to be, you'll find that you've been cheating yourself of your true existence. And we all have purpose. This is a fact. We all have purpose. And many of us, we search for significance and we look for validation outside of ourselves and we look for others to tell us who we are. And that's a problem because only you, only you can be who you are. Only you can be who you are. Only you can be your true, authentic self. And when you allow others to suppress you, when you allow others to dictate to you to be what they want you to be, you basically robbing yourself of an experience of being the wonderful creation that you are. Now, something I want to touch on before we even get into tonight's episode, I recently came across a video. I think it was like a TikTok video or something, and it kind of opened my eyes to something, and in a way, uh, it was kind of disturbing, but um, it's really something that is common in this day and time, and basically, it's dealing with the disconnect between um, the youth or the generation of today and the generations of previous times. And I understand now. I think a lot of times when people hear me give honor to the ancestors, and people hear me talk about how the ancestors were so awesome and so phenomenal, and I love the ancestors and I appreciate the ancestors and I always look towards the ancestors. I think a lot of people can't relate to that because in their mind they feel like the ancestors let them down or the ancestors dropped the ball. Um, I heard individuals speak on how the ancestors uh, basically abused us, or the ancestors um, they did a lot of horrible things to suppress us or to perpetuate ignorance, or they did a lot of things to us to keep us from elevating. So I want to speak on that for a minute. I feel I have to speak on that for a minute. And the reason I feel I have to speak on this is because if you're looking at a picture with jaded colored glasses, or if you can't see the whole picture and you can only see aspects of something, I could understand how you could come to conclusions like that. However, we need to we need to understand something, and we need to understand something quite sincerely. And what I'm saying is that we are light beings. We are light beings. My ancestors are beings of light. Now, there are also dark beings. There are workers of darkness. Just like there are workers of light, there are workers of darkness. So the same way there are people that want to bring enlightenment into the world, and there are people who want to uplift humanity, there's also people that want to enslave humanity. And there are also people who work darkness and who are doing things to keep humanity suppressed. So, with that being said, understand that there are light workers, something that I've always said from the beginning. I always give thanks to the light workers. Those are my people. I'm from the lineage of the people of the light. That's my people. That's my ancestors. My ancestors are light workers. My people are the ones who've always come throughout history, throughout time space continuum, always trying to uplift humanity and bring them out of their darkened stage, out of their darkened states that they find themselves in. And throughout the records of the past, you'll always see that there were certain individuals who were beacons of light. In spite of all the darkness that was occurring, there were always individuals who were beacons of light. So when I say I give thanks to the ancestors, I'm speaking on the light workers. Those were my ancestors. I'm nothing new. I'm the same energy, just reconverted for this day and time. And my people were light workers. And I'm following in the footsteps that was already established by them. So people used to say, all skin folks ain't kin folks. This is a fact. This is a fact. All skin folks ain't kin folks. This is so true. And we got to understand that. We got to understand that. We got to get away from what we see with our eyes. We got to get out of that. That's not what we're dealing with. It's not about the things that we see with our eyes. This is a whole nother thing. This is as people would say, a spiritual thing. Now, when we talk about spirit, and we talk about spiritual, breaking it down to the science, spiritual is mental. It's dealing with mental, and it's dealing with the mental plane. It's dealing with the thoughts. It's dealing with that type of energy. So when we're talking about spiritual, we're talking about that. We're not talking about spookism. We're not talking about some mystic or whatever out of thin air, poof. Nothing like that. Although thoughts are in a whole different realm and on a whole different spectrum, and it is on the unseen planes. Thought is on the unseen planes, and the frequencies are rampant. They're running rampant on the unseen planes. And when we learn how to channel our thoughts and we learn how to focus our thoughts, we can utilize our thoughts for our benefit. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because when we're talking about spiritual warfare, we're basically talking about mental warfare. And one of the statements that have always resonated in my mind is that the greatest weapon an oppressor can ever use is the mind of the oppressed. The greatest weapon an oppressor can ever use is the mind of the oppressed. And that's what's going on. That's what's been happening. The whole thing has been a mental war. And the reason why many meet their demise is because their mind is being used against them. And their mind is creating a lot of the events that are happening in their lives, or a lot of the shortcomings that's happening, or a lot of the snares that many people find themselves facing is being caused with their own mind. But it's not necessarily because they of their own doing or generating these thoughts. Someone is using the concept of inception to create certain imageries or certain thought processes to formulate in the mind of the individuals who are not utilizing their minds for themselves, and they're causing them to hatch certain concepts and certain ideas to hatch within the mind of the individuals who they're trying to target. And as these ideas hatch and as these thoughts hatch, it become thoughts, and the thoughts become things in the individuals' lives who are thinking these thoughts. That's why I always advocate taking control of your own mind, utilizing your own mind and utilizing your own thoughts and manifesting things on your own. Because if you don't use your own mind, someone else will. Let me say that again. If you don't use your own mind, someone else will. And when other people use your mind, it's never to your benefit. is always to the benefit of someone else, and sometimes it's even to your detriment. And that's what's been happening. And it's just very disheartening to just see how this is taking place. But it's reality. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. And individuals who are free thinkers are pretty much being silenced these days and time. They don't want to allow individuals who are free thinkers to have platforms or to even have a lot of fanfare, because they don't want to encourage that. When I say they, I'm talking about colonial powers or the powers that be or the ruling forces. Um, I can get way deeper, but I'm gonna keep it surface. You know, so much you can talk about on the platform, but then sometimes individuals have to learn how to read between lines and learn how to take keys and go and do digging for themselves so they can actually get a proper understanding of what's really being said that's not being said. But yeah, back to what I was saying about the disconnect between the generation of now and the younger generations and the older generations. I think it's a misnomer between who your ancestors were and who is for you and who is against you. And that's really the premise of tonight's episode: principles over personalities. We have to get to a place of understanding who is for us and who is against us. And all skin folks ain't kin folks. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to dive more into tonight's episode on No Pork and Our Pearls. And we're back to No Pork and Our Pearls. And tonight we're talking about principles over personalities. And I just want to take this moment to say thank you to all my supporters who've been rocking with me for a long time now. I really appreciate all the support you've given me, and I appreciate all the encouragement that you've given me, and just all of your time and energy. And my whole desire for this show is just to share information. That's all. Just share information, hoping that it could help someone to evolve or help someone to make it a little bit further, or really unlock some doors or some keys in your life that you may have been wrestling with or may have been puzzled about. But the whole thing about when we dealing with principles over personalities is that we have to get to a place where we leave from fellowship and we get to a place of scholarship. We gotta leave the state of fellowship and get to a place of scholarship. This is a necessity. The greatest lie that ever was told to me was the lie of Santa Claus by my biological mother. The greatest lie that was ever told to me was the lie of Santa Claus by my biological mother. Now, bear with me as I unpack that statement. In my mom's heart, she felt as if she wanted me to experience a normal childhood, and she didn't want to take away any of the festivities and the fun and the mystique of believing in something like a Santa Claus. And in her mind, to see the joy and the happiness on my face and on the face of others was worth telling the lie of Santa Claus. Now, I've not heard, so I can't speak for her. And I've heard many other people say similar things as well, so I can't speak for them either. But for me, the whole concept of her telling me this lie and perpetuating this lie and keeping it going for as long as she did was a great thing for me. Why was it a great thing for me? It was a great thing for me, and it was the greatest lie I was ever told, because this was the lie that woke me up. This was the lie that woke me up. And this was the lie that woke me up to getting out of the state of fellowship and getting to a state of scholarship. Knowing that this individual who was God to me, my mother, my creator, along with my father, my mother and my fathers are my creator. That's my creators. And to have my mother, the one who I was basically attached to, umbilical cord. I got a belly button. I got a belly button. And the belly button is proof that I was attached to an umbilical cord. And I was attached to her umbilical cord. Even though it was snipped, it was cut, it may have been physically cut, but it still wasn't cut on the spiritual realm. It was never cut on the spiritual realm. So we were always attached and always connected. But knowing that this individual that I was connected to from the womb would go as far as she did to lie to me about Santa Claus, trying to have me believe that a fat, Caucasian, patriarch, right, would come to my home which we didn't have a fireplace. We didn't have that. Um, in fact, many times we changed addresses quite frequently. So within a year's time, I may have had 2 or 3 residencies within a year's time. So if Santa Claus was basing his observations on me for like a whole year, watching me and my behavior for a year, and then based on like what his conclusion was, he was gonna make a decision if he was gonna bless me with some gifts. You know, the whole thing was a little bit hard to believe, but she continued to perpetuate the lie, continued to perpetuate the fact that Santa Claus is real and Santa Claus is coming, and if you don't behave, um, he's not gonna bring you anything. He's gonna put a lump of coal in your stocking. Mind you, we had no stockings because we had no fireplace. There was no stockings. Um, so you know, but still, the whole narrative was still going on about this guy was gonna come. He was gonna bring me all these gifts for me behaving a certain way. For me, as they would say, being good. If you are good, then you're gonna receive gifts. But if you're not good, you're not gonna receive any gifts. Now, the measures that my mom went through to provide these gifts and working these jobs and putting things on layaway and borrowing money and doing all type of things just to make sure that we had gifts on Christmas and trying to get the gifts that we wanted, which most of the time I never got the gifts that I wanted. Never really got the gifts that I wanted. I would get something close to it, but never really the exact thing that I wanted. But all this was beautiful. And I say it was beautiful because as I'm saying, these are the things that helped me to wake up and leave a state of fellowship to learn how to learn on my own, to research on my own, to find out things on my own, and to not take other people's word for it. Because if the closest person that I knew in my existence on this physical plane would look me dead in my eyes and lie to me about something as silly as a Santa Claus and how this dude in a 24-hour period can go to every household around the whole world in one night and drop gifts in everybody's um, gifts under everybody's Christmas tree or whatever, however it goes, going down the chimney and all this. If she would look me dead in my eyes and she would lie to me about this continually, consistently, over and over again, no matter how extensive my questions got, no matter how much I challenged the idea, she would still continue to hold on to the lie. So it just really, really taught me you can't trust nobody. And some people say, "Oh, you got trust issues," or it's about trust. No, it's not about trust issues. It's about having concrete evidence about what is it that you're trying to learn, or what is it that you want to know. You need to have concrete evidence. Like if you was to go to trial or if you was to go to court, they would want you to present your evidence for your claims. Like if you made a claim about something, you should be able to present your claim and you should have evidence to back up your claim that you're presenting. And it's not about emotionalism at all. It's not about emotionalism. It's all about what can you prove? What can you prove? And this is the take that individuals who become scholars take. They don't use emotionalism in making decisions. They take the emotionalism out. Even though they may feel a certain type of way about a subject or a scenario or whatever they feel about something, they may feel certain things. But the bottom line is they have to utilize procedure and they have to go through and follow the steps to qualify their statements. They need to take the time to do their due diligence in finding evidence to substantiate their claims. These are things that must happen when you want to go to that next level. And you got to get away from your emotionalism of how you feel about something and how you think it should be, or because you feel like it should be like this and you feel like that. It's okay to feel however you feel. It's wonderful to feel how you feel. But what can you prove? What can you demonstrate? How can you present what it is that you're trying to say? Your presentation. It's about your presentation. It's about what you can bring forth to showcase what it is that you know. So I'm going to take another break and we'll come back with more No Pork and All Pearls. And we're back to No Pork and All Pearls. And tonight we're talking about principles over personalities. In the last segment, I was basically talking about how Santa Claus was the greatest lie that I was ever told, and how that lie helped to awaken me and helped me to get away from that stage of followship, learning to never follow anyone, no matter how close or how much you love them or how connected to them you are or whatever. It don't matter. You have to get to a point where you use your logic and you also utilize certain methods and principles and sciences to come to your conclusion. They say that justice is blind, and they say that the law is blind. And this is true. This is a true statement because when you're dealing with justice and you're dealing with the law, there are certain protocols and certain procedures that have to be followed and administered in order to get to jurisprudence. Now, when you on that level and when you're actually doing the proper procedures and you're following the protocols of how things are to be done, you'll find that you'll have much more success than if you just was winging it or if you was just doing something. Now, the problem that many of us and that I've seen that the people have been dealing with is that everyone wants to find a leader. Everybody wants to find a leader. Everybody wants to follow someone. Everybody wants to follow someone. And they find different people who, well, let me back it up. Let me back that up. I say they find certain people, but there's a cast of characters that's given to you, that's given to the people. And many people gravitate towards one of the characters that are hand picked and hand chosen and is presented to you. And many people gravitate towards one of the characters and they want to follow that individual or follow that ideology or they want to follow that organization or whatever. But they want to follow something and they always want to become a part of it and they want to go all in on the beliefs that someone else built and on the beliefs and the principles that someone else stood for, and they adopt those principles for themselves and they make it their own and they stand for it. Now, the problem with that is when you place yourself in a position where you're following other people's thing and you're following other people's beliefs and you're following other people's platforms and all that, you forfeited your own ability to think for yourself. And you forfeited your own ability to use logic for yourself because you've adopted these principles and ideologies from someone else. And you are now becoming indoctrinated in the things in which they believe and the things in which they stood for. And you just adapted them for yourselves and you just carrying it on. Now, it's a difference between picking up the mantle. I had an episode about that. Picking up the mantle that your forefathers or foremothers and forefathers who were before you, the principles and the standards and the beliefs that they stood for. It's a difference in standing on those same principles and you moving that mantle forward. You taking that mantle and you moving it forward versus you trying to follow what someone else did. And I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm trying to say. Someone like Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I respect Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and I really appreciate the contributions that Marcus Mosiah Garvey made. Marcus Mosiah Garvey had followers, and they call themselves Garveyites. Garveyites hold Marcus Mosiah Garvey on a pedestal, and to this day, they talk about the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and they talk about the things that Marcus Mosiah Garvey stood for, and all the things that he believed in, and all the things he was fighting for, and they keeping it going, and they doing it for Marcus Mosiah Garvey. But the problem is that okay, so the new Garveyites that's following Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who are they? Why do we not know their names? We know Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but we don't know no one after Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We don't know them because they're buried under the umbrella of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And it's like all they're doing is uplifting Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the things he believed in, even though Marcus Mosiah Garvey is no longer here in the physical plane during this time frame because his day and his time has come and passed. Now, his principles that he believed in, nationalism, nation building, those type of things, those things are things that we should definitely be utilizing. Those things are things that we should definitely be utilizing. Now, this is when someone like El Hajj Malik Shabazz, who many people still refer to him as Malcolm X or Malcolm Little or whatever misnomer nomenclatures that was put on him before he knew who his true identity was. And he put it on the record for the record, which was El Hajj Malik Shabazz. And that's who I respect him as, and that's who I will always acknowledge him as. Now, his father was a Garveyite, but he stood on the principle of, as he called it, black nationalism. Nationalism was a principle of Garvey. We all know who El Hajj Malik Shabazz is. You know why? Because he picked up the mantle and he moved it forward. Even as a member of the NOI, he was a minister at the NOI. He evolved from that to opening his own organization. So he was an example of picking up the mantle. That's an example of picking up the mantle. He took those principles. He took those principles that were involved and he utilized those principles and he moved it forward. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we have to learn how to choose principles over personalities. It's not about following any individual. It's not about following anyone's ideologies. It's not about following anyone's organizations per se. It's not about following anything. It's about getting yourself to a position where you can actually learn for self. And the first thing that you should seek and strive to learn is learn about yourself. No one on this planet can be authority over your life but you. You should be the expert over your life. You should be. And if you're not, then that's a red flag. It's a red flag and it's something that needs to be addressed as soon as you possibly can because you need to take authority over your life. You need to understand who you are and you need to understand what's best for you. Because if you can't make those decisions about yourself, about what's best for you and about who you are, then who are you to try to make decisions for others and try to run someone else's life or try to navigate someone else's life when you haven't even taken authority over your own life? It's a very arrogant and selfish thing to think that you can help navigate someone else's life when you haven't even been able to do that to your own life. And some people will be offended by that statement, and some people would not agree with it, and they would not want to hear that. But the fact of the matter is, it's the truth. If I can't drive a vehicle, what do I look like trying to be a driving instructor to teach someone else how to drive a vehicle? I mean, come on. Ask yourself that question, like, what sense does that make? And if I'm a student, why would I respect you as a teacher of you teaching me how to drive when you can't drive a vehicle, or you're not demonstrating that you can even drive a vehicle? Even though you may have read all the books, or you may have all the information that you can possibly have on driving, if you can't demonstrate what you're speaking on, then it's not a realistic expectation to think that someone who's supposed to be a student is going to submit to your authority and submit to your leadership to learn from you. Now, wisdom, someone that's wise, they may be able to see that you may have some knowledge and some information that they could utilize, and they might could take that information, they may can use it to their advantage. But for most and for the average, they're not going to be able to respect your knowledge or your wisdom, because if you can't make a demonstration, then they're not going to want to have to hear they're not going to want to hear what you have to say. And that's just the truth, and that's the facts. But we got to get to a place where we learn to choose principles over personalities, because following personalities have gotten us to the place where we're stagnant as a people, and it's gotten us to a place where our society is deteriorating. Our society is deteriorating, all because we're choosing to follow personalities over principles. The principles I follow is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Those are the principles that I follow, and I always follow them. That's the things that no matter what I do, where I go, who I'm with, those are the principles that govern my life. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. What are your principles that govern your life? Do you know them? And if you do know them, do you abide by them? Do you follow them? Do you utilize them? Principles over personalities. So thank you so much for tuning in. I want to say that I'll be back next week with another episode, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. But I just want to say that for those of you who think that this is about to be the new year, more power to you. I hope you enjoy your festivities and your celebrations and everything that you're gonna do. Just be safe and do the best you can to keep your energies positive and just keep your mind clear and understand that your mind governs all things. And for those of us who knows that the new year starts in the spring, peace be unto you. We'll be setting our intentions then, and we'll be ready to unleash our new manifestations for the upcoming year. But I just want y'all to know that I love y'all, and I really, really appreciate you. And pass the word to the show if you feel moved to. If not, it's all good. I did my part, and I just want to make sure that those who need to hear it will, because I know that they will. And if they don't hear it now, at some point in time they will. Or someone will relay the very same message in which I'm saying. They'll say it in a way in which they can hear it. But I'm just glad that I was able to put it out in the atmosphere. But until next time, I just want to wish you peace, love, and shalom.